I think it's really interesting because we see that this intelligent digital workspace, that's really what this is about. That by 2023, 70% of connected workers in these task-based roles are going to use this intelligence embedded in all sorts of adaptive digital workspaces. That means many things, but for IT, it means being able to support access to some of the corporate resources. That's data and applications, but it's also people. And it also means that IT is going to have to monitor those and support those environments so that we're leading much more collaborative lives with people who are not physically in the same spaces and places as us. And then we're going to have to be able to, as IT, be able to support these very adapted environments, the different flavors, if you will, of intelligent digital workspace, as we see more of that approach to low code and no code ebbing into our development environments, from our development environments into line of business. And speaking of business, what does that mean for our business leaders? It means that we have to have much more federated access to the key resources and collaborators. You've seen, and many have talked about this, much more of a democratization of access and being able to have less friction as we go between one application and the next. I mean, the birth of so many applications makes it really distracting and challenging as somebody who's an office worker, but we've also seen that expanding need to communicate well beyond the office into the field and for frontline workers as well. So the business impact is that there is much more access and need for support, but also when literally workers can be in almost any location, and of course there are those who can't, but when that's the case, it really changes the dynamic of where you can recruit from. It also changes the access to key talent, and unfortunately it drives the price up for that talent. So in a time when we're really seeing shortages in IT skills, but also in skills for humans to collaborate with each other, these tools are going to be essential. So our guidance for buyers is to seek out vendors that are having much more of an innovative approach to support hybrid work with intelligent digital workspaces. Our next prediction, which is the last one that we'll go into in depth, but we have an opportunity to have questions across the board. This one really focuses on something that we've hinted at throughout, that the digital transformation related to IT skills shortage is going to affect 90% of organizations by 2025. We already see this happening across the board, but it's going to be accelerated by all that shift to automation. And it's going to have a high price. So we see globally that that is going to cost $6.5 trillion through 2025. Why? Because delayed product releases, reduced customer satisfaction, and loss of business. And obviously, there are broader economic drivers that we were talking about at the beginning of the webinar. But I think it's important to think about this as a prediction and something that we have the power to make inroads towards addressing as we move forward. What IT is going to have to do is really start to reorganize to meet the needs for digital transformation priorities. And we already talked about how they have to collaborate very closely with line of business to be able to meet some of these change management requirements that hybrid is driving. They also have to be able to triage and select projects sometimes without necessarily having all the skills that they need in place. And again, this is where those third-party support resources are so important for buyers. And the fact is that, there will be some delay, there'll be some cancellations, there'll be some false starts, but it's going to take a hit for IT organizations that can't communicate well, and it will compromise their integrity if they don't have support from leadership and an understanding of what the strategy going forward is. And from a business perspective, line of business are also going to have to realign and organize to be able to know how to benefit from these new ways of working. They're going to have to take up the slack and pick up some of those IT skills, as well as working with tools that automate some of those elements. And it's going to create change management requirements that we haven't even envisioned at this point. But I think many organizations are on the way to shifting different roles, and leaders are learning both how those process changes are going to affect the organization and what opportunities there are to adopt new capabilities. So when they think about those skills, those are IT skill shortages, but they're also driving human skill shortages and leadership requirements. So I see those as coming one with the other as part of this transformation. So done well, we can start working now to address those shortages with organizational change, with automation, with really making this way of working in learning in the flow of work be part of how we work. And I think that tip here that we're sharing that is so important is that we have to make the skills development, just like the employee experience, be a critical success factor for achieving business results. It's not a nice to have. It's not a programmatic HR situation so much as a intelligent way of working that builds those IT skills development, as you were saying, Sandra, into the flow of work for all workers. And that's how we're going to achieve the business results. And that's how we're going to get better transformation happening.